calling the meeting to order, and roll call, please. Corky?
Corky Collier here.
Ken?
Ken Anderton here.
And we know that Nikki will be absent, and Nancy will be joining us soon. Emily, has the video audio recording started?
Yes.
Excellent. Is there any public testimony? Emily's shaking her head no, and
Yeah.
we see nobody raising her hand, so let's move on to the agenda item C, signing authorities, and I think this is Sunny's topic. Take it away.
Yeah, good morning. So we continue to be deep in COVID remote work, and right now we're getting electronic approval from the board to issue checks, and we'd like to ask that the board extends that through January 31st, since it doesn't seem like we're going to be coming into the office soon, and we'd like to continue to minimize contact between everybody. And so just wanted to see, I guess, if anybody had any comments on questions on how that, or concerns with how that's working right now. And then if not, if you guys would be willing to pass a motion to extend that authorization.
My comment is, why don't we extend it to May 31st? Sorry to be a downer, but
I would agree. I think it can always be rescinded, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'd go out to May. We just don't know what's going to happen in the future. We probably know we'll be sitting in front of this computer at least into January, February. So.
Would one of you like to propose a motion in that regard?
I'll move that we extend remote signing authority, is that what we call it, until May 31st, 2021.
I'll second that.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any further comment? If not, then please roll call vote, starting with Ken.
I vote aye.
Corky?
Aye.
Mike Wells votes yes. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, up to community update. Evan.
Good morning, folks. We just wanted to quickly touch base about where we are on the feasibility study and some planning efforts that are going on to ensure we go back to the community to provide an update. As you heard from the Corps last month, they've over the last several months, they've gone through a series of refinements on pump stations, on alignment, on levee height, and they are ready as of the end of this month to kind of tell the community where they are. So we're currently planning on October 28th to hold a kind of webinar style community update meeting where we'll invite folks from all 4 districts to come and hear from. Thankfully, Mike has agreed to be the representative board member to talk a little bit about where what the board process has been. Peggotty will talk a bit about kind of reminding people why this study matters to us and what's at risk and why we went and sought this to begin with. And then the Corps will present on what their refinements have been. Obviously, we think that this will be of most interest to the Bridgeton and East Columbia kind of Penn 2 folks, but there will be residents from MCDD that I'm sure will participate, as well as some business representatives who have been paying attention to this project. And then we'll kind of close out with a little bit about what comes next. This is a 3-phase federal process. There's a lot of uncertainty, and then we'll try to help folks understand. We've been getting questions about, like, how does this all fit together with Levee Ready Columbia and then this new district? And so Colin will end with kind of an overview of what all the things are that we're working on and how they all fit together. And we're going to, open it up for questions multiple times throughout the meeting. It'll be open for questions, but we'll actually take questions throughout the meeting so that people don't have to wait all the way till the end. And the questions will all be via chat so that so that we can kind of vet them as they come in and decide if there's themes that we need to address. And I think I do not see, oh, she is on here. And I also wanted to introduce really quickly Jamie Damon, who is our new, she's been brought on to facilitate both this community update meeting, but then to work with you all to reach a decision on the feasibility study in this spring about where you kind of where you want to land if you're going to support moving forward with the study. And Jamie is a professional mediator. She's with Kearns and West. It sounds like she's also going to be working with you all on the assets and liabilities work group as well. So Jamie, do you want to say a few words, introduce yourself to the board, and then we'll take some questions?
Of course, yeah. Thank you, Evan. So good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be able to join you. Apologies for being just a few minutes late. I was on a call with the directors of Department of Forestry and Department of Environmental Quality about recovery efforts, some other work that I'm involved with. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you on these multiple projects that you've got going on. It's a very complex and challenging time that you're all in, and I'm glad to be able to support you in that. I'm a mediator. I've worked in Oregon, Washington, Alaska for over 30 years as a public policy mediator, and working on a wide range of issues with predominantly government and entities. So really hoping that I've got some skills that I can support you in your work. I'm glad to take any questions. Evan, I'm not sure what you had in mind.
Yeah, if there's any questions about the process or the community update meeting.
Mike?
Yeah. Do we expect some controversy?
At the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked about this extensively, and that's kind of how we landed on this format. We did not want to repeat the Expo Center in January. That was kind of the top goal, was to not have angry people screaming at the Army Corps. So we think this is, the best way to make sure the community gets information, that they can ask questions without giving them the platform to, without giving people a platform to yell. The chat, the one thing I should have mentioned, the chat will only go to the administrator. So there'll be a couple of us who are logged in as administrators, and we'll see what's coming in, but everyone won't be able to see it. So it won't be able to become sort of a everybody rag on the Corps or whatever thing they want to complain about. So our hope is that by doing it this way, we can kind of manage it. I don't think it'll be as satisfying to the people who wanted to come and just be angry, but at least we can have a productive conversation and get people that genuinely need this information and want this information, the information they need. And I really do believe that, at least for the majority of the folks who are concerned, the Corps has gone above and beyond to try to address those concerns. And I think that once people hear that and they can kind of walk away and think about it, a lot of the sort of anxiety will be addressed. But we want to make sure that they have that opportunity to kind of walk away and think about it before they have to react.
Yeah, can I just add a couple of things, Evan? And then Evan's done a terrific job of coordinating with the Corps, and we've got, I think 4 prep meetings all in all, leading up to the community workshop, where we're working with the Corps on their presentation. We're anticipating questions, really trying to front load as much as possible, making sure we push that information out. And as Evan said, the Zoom platform makes it a little more challenging to grandstand, but there is still the opportunity for that. And that's why we're going to keep the chat open, throughout at several points through the agenda. We're not waiting for people to put questions in at the end, because we want folks to be able to ask questions to understand the information as it's coming out. And so we'll be pausing at the end of major agenda items to check in and make sure that people are moving along with us. So there's a couple things that we're doing to try to, keep the conversation in a productive mode, but also keep the space open for people to ask the questions that they need to ask. And then we're going to do a follow-up with FAQs based on, all the things that we aren't able to answer in the moment, and do an FAQs that will be posted on the, on the website, and push that out to folks so people can see what kinds of questions were asked and what the answers are. So those are some things we're doing, Mike, to try to get ahead of that.
That's good.
Can you explain a little bit more how that chat works? So other people won't, the people in the meeting won't be able to see everybody's questions in the chat. Are those questions going to be verbalized?
Yeah.
So the goal,
it sounds a little odd to have a public meeting without being able to see what the other public is saying.
so the reason that we decided to do that, Corky, was
I'm sorry. I get why you're doing
Okay.
it. I understand that. I have no problem. I agree with your analysis. That's not
Got
the
it.
issue. That's not my question. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay,
No,
so the way that
yeah.
we're going to handle it is Jamie is going to stop after each agenda item, and myself and somebody from her shop are going to be kind of furiously reading all I'm assuming furiously, but it may just be one question. We'll be watching very carefully, summarizing for Jamie what we're seeing and telling her, okay, this is the big question right now that we're hearing over and over and over, or there's only one question, why don't you read it verbatim, to help her. So she'll stop after every agenda item and read the questions or summarize what the many questions have been, and then asks either a member of the core team or a member of our team to answer those questions. And the way we've broken it up is basically, 5 minutes of Q&A after the first couple agenda items, 10 minutes after the core, and then another 20 after the final kind of call-in presents the next step, so that we can kind of try to have time after each item to start to address questions. We may not be able to get to them all, but we're going to try our best, and then afterwards we'll follow up.
And then, again, since it's a public meeting, will the public have access to all those questions afterwards, or how does that work? And have you run this by Hong? And and again, I get what you're doing. I was at the expo meeting. I understand, and I certainly understand how people can try and grab an agenda item and run with it, for their own purposes instead of really for the public good. But I'm concerned here that we're having a public meeting and really at the same time trying to distance the public from it. That's got me, I'm not sure how that works legally.
Yeah, let's, we'll talk about that specifically with Hong and follow up with you all and make sure that that's totally fine.
Yeah,
I think this is just a Q&A with, staff. If it's not a decision-making body there, then the requirements will be a little bit different, but I do think it would be a good idea to capture that or print it or PDF it or however you may, just so that it's, we have it and nobody can make an accusation that, we just deleted somebody's comment or ignored it or.
And just off the cuff, off the top of my head, that might make sense, because if you're publicizing that afterwards, you've taken a little wind out of the sail of people who want to grandstand. But you're still offering all that information publicly so people can say, I really do have a concern about this. Let me follow up. And that might work out well.
Yeah, and Kelly, I was going to say the exact same thing. I mean, we're going to be recording the meeting and posting the recording as a follow-up. The core said that's fine, and all the chat. Well, the nice thing about the chat is we can get a transcript of that verbatim, and so we can see who asked the question. We can see exactly how they phrased the question, and that all becomes part of the meeting record. And then we wanted to do the FAQs follow-up. I don't think it was our intent to attribute the questions to specific speakers in the FAQ follow-up, but really to kind of roll up the questions, and push them out. So we've got a number of ways to do that. And here is Hong.
That's
And I
correct.
was just going to add to that. I mean, if you want to, you can just post the entire video
That's
on
what we're
the
gonna do.
website.
That's what we're gonna do, yeah.
That would clearly address all public records concerns.
Yep.
Yeah, Hong, my
Entire
concern
video
with
and
posting the video, if you don't also post all the questions that were
Yeah.
asked, then
So-
it's kind of one-sided, you know, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe that's a technical question. I assume that the video
We can do it.
captures the chat as well.
We can do it, Hong. It's no problem.
Yeah.
I think the beauty with having the list of questions that come in provides us the ability, we can even one of the things to think about is, because I hear where Corky's coming from, there's a feeling of disconnect
Mhm.
if the questions are going on and yet responses, the FAQ just hits 10 things but there were 20 questions. There may be a summary FAQ and behind that we list the questions that one answers. I mean,
Well,
something.
we can also just post the PDF of the chat and
Yeah.
have Jamie
Yeah.
in her preliminary comments at the beginning, she's going to walk people through how Zoom works and how the chat is going to work. And she can say, I want you all to know that we are going to post a PDF of the chat. So everything you've written in the chat will become public, is public record and will be posted online.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
really, the reason for the, having the questions go to the administrator, which the administrators will be, Evan, myself, and Aaron from our shop, is more that what happens is people end up talking to each other, which is great, except that then it's really difficult to find the questions that we're trying to pull out to get to the team to answer in the meeting. And so that's part of it. And then the other part is that sometimes they can just get wrapped around the axle with the question of themselves, sent, reply all. And then it becomes difficult to, even for the participants to sort of wade in with their questions. So it's just a logistical thing with the Zoom that we're
I
trying to
understand all that. And if you're posting the questions publicly afterwards, or the whole chat, whatever,
Yep.
I think that probably does the trick.
Good.
My concern is I'm trying to look at it from another angle and
Yeah.
say, all right, if somebody was thinking that we were trying to do something nefarious,
Yep.
and there are some people that think that,
Yep.
if that's in their mindset and they're realizing that only a select few people are getting the questions and they're picking and choosing which questions they want to answer,
Yep.
that's not good. So
We talked about that, Corky, and
Yeah.
I think there are people that are going to think that we are.
Mhm.
I don't think that this is going to be a satisfying meeting to the people that wanted to come and express their opinion and be, vocally give comments. Our hope is to make it a satisfying meeting for the people that want the information. But you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that we're extremely transparent. So we will post the meeting online. We'll post a PDF of the comments online, and then we'll do the roll up. So if people want to look at the full comments, and we could even link on the PDF on the FAQ to the full comments.
Yeah, I mean, darn well, anybody that's going to look at the PDF of all the comments is just going to look for their own anyway. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative, but that is going to be,
Yeah.
Did they hear me?
Yeah.
And if we can demonstrate, yes, we heard you, here it is, and this is the answer, we've closed the loop.
Yeah.
The
And
best
it's
we
an-
can under the COVID.
And it's an important part of holding us accountable. And being transparent at the best that we can. And even in the meeting, as information's coming in real time, I mean, I can say things like, we have X number of questions, or we've had this many questions, this many people ask this same question, or we've got a number of specific questions unique to individual properties, and we're going to follow up with you, one-on-one after that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we can do within the meeting to make people, to make sure that people understand that we're hearing them, we're capturing what they're saying, we're doing the best we can with the information they're asking us for in the meeting, and we'll be following up with them afterwards. So I think that's really, like you said, in this COVID environment, that's really the best we can do.
And Jamie,
Mike? Sorry, Ken, and then Mike.
I'm assuming you've used this format in other public settings and meetings. I know it's evolving with COVID, and we're getting a little better at doing it and learning lessons. I assume this is taking the best management practices that we've learned and applying it. Second is, how do we accommodate folks that may not have internet access or speak a different language? That might be another topic that comes up, and that we're not being fully inclusive if we don't consider that.
Yeah, if people don't have internet, they can still, they can still do talk to text into the chat. They can still participate in the chat, even if they've phone called in. So that's one. And we can cover that in the ground rules to make sure that people know that. The language part, we haven't talked about that as a part of our planning.
So Ken, we've talked about it internally, especially when we were budgeting, and we do have budget set aside for translation and interpretation services associated with public meetings. We have never needed them for the meetings associated with the feasibility study and when we've invited constituents for just within the managed floodplain. That doesn't mean that somebody wouldn't want to participate, somebody new wouldn't want to participate. But we have budget. We could hire interpreters. It's just what we've found is that when we've done that, we haven't needed them yet because our outreach to the communities that are primarily speaking a language other than English is pretty limited. So we just don't have those deep connections with those communities.
Yeah, I think so. We should talk further on with future engagements, though, because I think that is a kind of the future, and that's been with public agencies. And I'm not saying MCDD, but it's a criticism of public agencies of holding meetings that are inconvenient to, say, a population that works during the day, or a population that we only speak in English or don't provide any services other than English, and then we don't provide childcare. So it's should be part of our DEI strategy.
Yeah.
We'd planned on providing childcare and for public meetings. Obviously that no longer applies. We are talking about it as part of DEI, and I think it's also going to need to be a big part of the new districts discussion as well, is how do we invest in the capacity to build the relationships in those communities so that we are holding meetings that are relevant and inclusive of those folks. We haven't been able to do that outreach to build those relationships. So currently, I'm not even sure the folks are aware of these meetings because of who's on our email lists and who sees our social media posts, and we put it in newspapers, but honestly, I'm not sure who reads newspapers anymore. So, it's definitely a long-term strategy issue we need to work on.
Yeah, there's translation services out there that
Yep.
you can call it and get translate. I mean, they've been out for 25 years. I used to work my first job as a police and fire dispatcher. I could call anywhere, at AT&T translation services, and they would patch it through and then translate it live. So there's options that are probably cost effective. We just need to research on them, see what would it.
There's some electronic options as well that are even more cost effective. When you're putting the meeting notices out, does it request that people contact us if they do need any sort of translation service?
We haven't put a meeting notice out yet for this one, so we can certainly include that.
That'd be my suggestion is make, if we're not going to automatically have a number of translators there at the meeting, which I understand may not be reasonable, to make it really, really as easy as possible to somebody to say, hey, I need this. And to really honestly respond to that. And I'll give you an example where I just got in trouble the other day. We were having the fire bureau came by our neighborhood and said, hey, we were going to look at this slope that's susceptible to wildfires. If you like, we'll come by and set up an appointment, come by. I said, sure, let's set up an appointment. Went online. Sarah, my wife, set it up, and she said, and I'm deaf, and left it at that. So they showed up with no translator, and I told Sarah, I said, well, we didn't actually ask for a translator. You only said that you're deaf. And well, I was in the doghouse that night. So my point is make it really, really easy and really listen to what they're kind of trying to say, which was what I did not do myself. And yeah.
Lesson learned.
Yeah. Well, no, unfortunately, I've learned this lesson multiple times. It doesn't quite stick. So yeah.
Excellent feedback. Thank you.
Good discussion. I'm glad that you've done so much preparation, and I think I'm optimistic this will be a good meeting. Thanks, Evan.
Mike, thank you.
Let's move along to agenda item E, working group. Bill, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, all. I believe you received our one-page summary of what's being proposed today. The currently the board working group for the assets and liabilities project consists of 4 members, 1 from each of the 4 drainage district boards. But the staff recently has deliberated some more and connected with a gentleman we've been introduced to in Clackamas County who has gone through a similar exercise recently. And realize that this working group is really can be very influential in making sure that the information that's being packaged not only is well received from the larger group, but also can also be influential in providing some background and advocacy when the district board meets, the new urban district board meets, when they're talking about revenue options and rate structure. So with that in mind, we thought it may be valuable for expanding the membership of the board working group to include 2 advisory members from the new urban district board. They would be advisory because the final decisions are with the existing boards. But with those 2 additional members, we feel that there would be a bit of a stronger advocacy during their deliberations later on. Plus, they would provide some additional perspective on what things that board might be thinking of as we consider how we package information regarding assets and liabilities. So I think there's value there to add a couple more perspectives from that group. And our staff is going through and talking to each of the 4 boards currently through their individual meetings to ask if they have an interest in expanding this membership to those 2 additional folks. So any questions or comments?
Did you have anyone in particular in mind?
No, we have not. Peggy, do you want to explain a little more what conversations you've had?
We'll be presenting and having that discussion with the district board on Monday when they have their meeting. I did not want to jump ahead of this board's of the various district boards to participate. So there are some people that I believe would be interested, but at this point I do not have specific names.
It sounds like that you're getting, the whole reason is to get buy-in from the new board as well as the districts. That seems
yeah, I just think it makes sense. I've heard from various board members of the districts of how do we know what we're doing is really going to be usable for them. It just provides a connection and it begins a little more of an integration process without being, they're not going to have a voting right. They're just there for keeping everyone aligned on where we're going. I think there's a little more integration will be helpful.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, let the record show that Nancy Hendrickson has joined us. Welcome, Nancy. I concur with this recommendation. I think it's a good idea. Getting the right 2 from that board, I think is going to be the key. But I'm confident that you, Peggotty, and Corky, who's our lies into that board, can orchestrate that. Do we have any exceptions or concerns with the recommendation? Corky? Ken?
No, I'm on board with that.
Okay. And Nancy?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
So the next item we have for us is F, water rights. Carrie, welcome.
Yes, thank you. So I have my audio on my phone. My connection's a little shaky, so if my lips and voice are not connected, I apologize.
We can see and hear.
Prioritize continuity. And so yeah, I appreciate the time today. It's good to see you all again. And so I'm here to do two things. One, to provide a brief update on our status of our water rights, and primarily to get your direction on how we invest district resources in maintaining the water rights. The staff's recommendation for a path forward has some risks and also some assumptions about district policy priorities. And so we wanted to make sure that we had your buy-in before proceeding. So I will be primarily working from the memo that you were provided in your board packet. I'll summarize the staff recommendation, some background, the options we considered, and then ultimately I'm asking for a motion to approve a path forward, or of course additional information if we need to have a continued conversation on this. So the staff recommendation, so our water rights allow us to pump from 74 specific locations in the slough located on 74 different properties, water from the slough for the purposes of irrigating up to 1,000 acres. And we are asking to continue reporting to Oregon Water Resources Department in a fairly basic nature on those, and deferring additional investments in modernizing how we monitor and report on water usage until we know if the water rights will be retained by the new district. And the background is that our statute gives us authority to hold those water rights and provide water delivery as a service. And the water right that we do have is quite senior. It's from 1939, it's perfected. So if we did really need water and there were a shortage, we would have a high priority for that use. But the land use in the district has changed, obviously tremendously since 1939 when this water right was created. And today, neither we nor the landowners with the points of diversion are irrigating crops. There are 3 to 4 landowners that we know of using the points of diversion and our water right, primarily to water lawns and potted plants. And in 2015, Oregon Water Resource Department contacted us and formally requested that we start reporting on our water rights in a manner consistent with their regulations for public entities. And specifically, that includes fairly accurate monthly flow reporting, so some calibrated flow meters on site at all of the diversion points. And then also that we confirm the specific locations of those points and update the way the water rights represented with the state. Because what we have is actually a paper map with 74 dots on it. I think it is even hand drawn. So our understanding of where exactly those things are, we've digitized it. We've made our best estimation of which parcels those dots fall on. But given the parcel size in the district today, we actually can't be entirely sure, and it would take some additional investigation and then work with the state to update and get what the state has on record to fully match up. Now, OWRD we've worked with them to let us do a less rigorous interim reporting procedure for the last 4 years. where we do a landowner survey and we report the self-reported water usage, essentially. And they've agreed that we can continue to do that for the next 4 years. They have also been asking us to document annually progress that we're making towards meeting all of the regulatory requirements, and have agreed that, okay, we understand that you have this transition to the new district, and will allow this less rigorous interim reporting for the next 4 years while you determine if the water rights are going to be transferred to the new district, which it does have the authority to hold those water rights. And so we, let me scroll down to my notes here. We are recommending that we essentially take them up on that offer and continue this pretty basic low cost reporting mechanism. Costs us about $2,000 to $6,000 a year, depending how much goes to our consultants. And we're increasingly taking on the work ourselves to do those landowner surveys and compile the data to keep that cost down. There is some risk that OWRD could change their mind and could seek to terminate our water use. That seems like a pretty low risk to us, partially because we're in conversation with them and have email confirmation that they're okay with what we're doing right now, and also because it's a pretty big lift for them to start terminating a water right. But it does also sort of presume that water delivery is no longer as high of a priority service for our assessment payers, and therefore not as high of a priority for district investment, which is why Hong advised that we connect with the board before making the decision to take this kind of low cost, low long-term investment option. Alternatively, we could go for it and install flow meters. The cost is fairly high because the assumption is that we wouldn't want to have to send the crew out every month to all these private properties to see what the flow was, but we would want some automatic data from them that we could report. And then that was estimated at $37,000, and then $6,000 to $9,000 for updating the point of diversions on the water right. And we're not recommending that because if the new district board decided they didn't want to retain the water rights, those investments would lose their value. And then the last option that the staff considered was getting some additional expert opinion, a water rights attorney, to walk us through what are the pros of keeping these and continuing to report and, spend money year after year in keeping the water rights, the cons, the costs, and the process to move forward. And we're not recommending that at this time because of the tight budget limitations and recognizing how many budget priorities we do have right now. And so I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
We had any business plans that would look at, what to do with the future water rights, so we could capitalize on those?
Sorry, say that again?
Do we have any, have we had in the past, some sort of business plan that would look how you could capitalize on using the water rights?
Not to my knowledge. Hong or Sunny, any history of our water rights or a business plan related to them?
I'm not aware of any, Ken.
And I'm not aware of any either.
Yeah, I mean, we've just maintained the rights for the individual property owners for irrigation versus, I guess, are you thinking more for like, when you say capitalize, I guess maybe could you tell me a little bit more what your...
Well, the port has quite a bit of water rights that we've inherited by purchasing property. And it's always been a kind of a tough, we're balancing the same questions that MCDD is that there's a cost for compliance to maintain those water rights, but we haven't found a use to put those into make us money to recover those costs. And so I was wondering if you guys have figured that out yet, and we could steal it. But
Well,
Maybe
I
that's
think
a question for the water rights attorney. They may have some notion of how other clients have monetized that.
well, so this issue is brought to this board because you have a statutory right, obligation, at least under the current statute, to deliver water for irrigation purposes. As you transition to the new board, there is this improved water environmental component of that new board's mission. And so to monetize and capitalize it, I think that's something we have in place an ability to keep these water rights. I think because we're looking to merge into the new board with a new mission, that from my position should be left to the new board. And the question of capitalizing and using the water rights we have, it could be a balance with it. Should we just give it back to the state and give it back to the environment to improve the environmental aspect of it, or do you sell it off to somebody and make a little bit of money? So that's all entirely a board decision that I think, in my opinion, may be better left for the new board.
So I assume those will be listed as assets when we compile all our assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes.
That is correct. It is an asset. Or it could be a liability.
Yeah.
Well,
Because there's surface water from the slough, so it's not like deep well aquifer, and it is a 303 delisted water body. So
I don't know, maybe they'll make a small hydro turbine or something that can produce power, and you'll be, you found a way to fund the district.
Gary, I think that was a good presentation. Is there one of the supervisors that wants to make a motion with respect to the staff's recommendation?
I can go ahead and make a motion. I don't actually see one in here, so I'll make it up.
Yeah.
I propose that we go with the staff recommendation number 1 to continue reporting water usage based on surveys and defer additional investment until the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District Board can determine whether to retain the water right.
Is there a motion? Is there a second to that eloquent motion?
That was an excellent motion. I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Carrie, will that motion satisfy the state? They seem to be, I thought maybe you were indicating they wanted a little bit more than that.
I could say that they are understanding and in agreement about our path forward in terms of using the survey. They see that it is a challenging time to make significant investments and not know if you can realize the value of those. I think in an ideal world, they would like us to, spend the $40,000 to $50,000 and modernize our reporting infrastructure. But as I noted, I think that the risk that they change their mind is quite low, and the risk that they take any sort of action to terminate our water rights because we're in this interim period is also quite low.
You had said that you wanted,
but it doesn't make them happy.
You had said that they wanted us to report on our progress in the intervening years.
Yes, so we are doing that. But
okay, so what we're doing right now is adequate progress for them.
Informally, yes. Informally.
Right. No,
So,
just want to check and make sure that, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or clarifications? If not, then roll call vote. Corky?
Aye.
And I, Mike Wells, vote yes. Nancy?
Aye.
Ken?
Anderton votes aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Carrie.
All right, thank you.
Now we move on to the exciting topic of MCDD rates. Kelly, you're up.
Always exciting. Thanks, Mike. Good morning. So as this board knows, the JCA was granted $500,000 from the state for work towards the urban district. And I think the proposal is that we would not charge overhead on labor rates in order to kind of maximize and extend that grant as much as possible. And so looking at the rate sheet that MCDD approved during budget season in June, there is not a set of rates that reflects a no overhead option. So what we've proposed is an update to that exhibit. So we're essentially just updating the prior resolution that you've already passed. And if you have your packet in front of you and can take a look at the exhibit that's included in the resolution, you'll see that in the top section called personnel categories, and then the section that says 2020 to 2021 rates, there's an additional column that says rates without overhead. So that's the only difference. Well, I suppose if you ran a track changes, you'd see that I made the resolution a little bit prettier than the last one, but nothing important. So this column includes rates without overhead so that we can apply those rates to JCA as their subcontractor for work towards the urban district. And so that's all this is, just an update to the prior resolution so that we can implement those non-overhead rates. Are there any questions?
The only question I have is, what are we charging the other districts? Are we including overhead?
Yeah, so the other districts are maintaining, I think it's 27%-ish. It's not as high. So for Multnomah County and the Port, we charge a higher overhead rate. But in recognition of the efficiencies of running all 4 districts, they have a lower overhead rate. And so I think it's about 27%.
And I assume they won't care, or have you broached that with them?
We haven't. So I don't know if they'll feel like that's unfair. But I think that, I would hope that they would understand that this is in the interest of kind of getting the most bang for our buck towards the new district. And so in essence, it's, it is of benefit to them indirectly.
And I would concur with Kelly that they all have an interest, a vested interest, and want to support this new district any way they can. And this is probably the least painful to them, a mechanism to help support that new district.
Yeah, and furthermore, that we're not recovering that overhead in our district as well. So it's a level playing field in that regard. Okay. Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. This is a resolution.
Yeah, it's resolution 2020-101.
I should just say before you do that, just to clarify that the no overhead labor rate will be charged against just the $500,000 grant from the Business Oregon. So to the extent that through our service to the urban district exhaust that $500,000 grant, we will come back to the board to revisit the potential need to adopt either continuing on the no overhead or a rate with overhead. That would be funded by non-Oregon, Business Oregon money.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-101 to substitute Exhibit B to exclude overhead from labor associated with services performed in the pursuit of the Oregon Business Development Department grant agreement number C2020103, Business Oregon grant in parents.
Well said. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. That's a roll call vote. Corky?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mike Wells votes yes. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that takes us to H, project updates. Bill Owen, get to show off some zippy photos.
That's true. Though I'm gonna pass the baton over to one of our new engineers, Liz Edgar, to go through the project updates. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah. Hi, I'm Liz Edgar. I joined the engineering team in March, and I am the project manager for both the pump replacement project and the trash rake replacement project. No, I'm sorry. I'm overseeing construction for the trash rake construction project. So we hit pretty major milestones with both of the projects this week. I'll hit first on the pump replacement project. So as you may recall, the project had to be staged so that we kept several pumps operational at all points in time because the station does pump year round. Pumps number 3 and 5 were the first to be taken offline and demolished, and both have been replaced and are fully operable, both manually and through automation right now. So pumps 3 and 5 are both run through a variable frequency drive, which allows for the pump's speeds to be adjusted for the varying upstream levels. And this also helps keep the pumps from cycling, which is good for limiting wear and tear on the pumps and is better for energy efficiency. So now that we have pumps 3 and 5 fully online, we are now able to enter phase 2 of the project as of yesterday, and that is to rebuild the motor control centers for pumps number 2 and 4. Pumps number 2 and 4 are really big workhorses for the stations. They're the ones that pump a lot of water, but we don't use them on a daily basis. We had to do a fair amount of electrical work to get to this point where we could take them down, and so it is a little bit scary to be taking them down in the middle of October, but knock on wood, we should have them commissioned by the end of the month back online. And also we have started the demolition of pump 1, and pump 1 will be replaced and should also be operational in early November. Pump 1 will also be off a variable frequency drive. And so the remainder of the construction window through the end of November will be spent programming and automating the pumps. And we will also be testing out our new manual storm switch, which will allow us to run this station through a portable generator if there is a power outage. And I'll switch gears to the trash rake replacements. So since the last update, there has been a lot of progress. We have completely removed the old equipment and the new equipment has been installed. MCDD operations is managing and performing the construction in-house. We are working with a couple of vendors who are doing the electrical work and also hanging and fitting hydraulic piping. As at the beginning of the week, we finished the electrical work and the hydraulic piping installation, which has allowed us to be ready to commission the trash rakes. And as of yesterday, they were all able to be operated through manual control. So we have all 5 trash rakes up and running. The rest of the project will be spent getting the trash rakes so we can operate them remotely and automatically. And we just need to do a couple of little cleanup items. So both projects are looking to be in good shape as we are approaching the wet season. And also have good news, we're still under budget on both projects with about 5% contingency remaining in each pot.
Liz, can you comment on the photo regarding the new telemetry cabinet? I don't remember.
Yes, yeah, the telemetry cabinet. So that is our SCADA system, and that is a series of controls which allows us to operate the station remotely, manually, if we so choose. But it also automates the operation of the pumps, so they turn on when the levels get high and turn off when the levels are back to an appropriate low. And yeah, this one is exciting because it has an interface screen that we can operate while we're in the station. So if we have to do work on the telemetry, we don't have to haul a computer in there to do it. So making upgrades.
Don't worry, Ken, there's a retinal scan as well needed, so you won't be able to operate the pumps.
That's true.
Oh, I was hoping I could. That would be fun.
Good report. I appreciate, especially that we're on schedule and on budget, and it's nice to include the pictures. That gives us a chance to see the scale of the pump and what's going on. It's cool.
Yeah, those pumps are huge, aren't they?
Yeah.
When they show up on site, they look like they're the size of an airplane. They're not that big, but the scale is just enormous.
Did you say our operational crew was installing them?
Our operational crew is installing the trash rakes. We do have a general contractor who's doing the pump replacement. That project is really time consuming and also pretty technical. And we did a fair amount of pre-qualification to get that contractor on board. So.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that we're putting in those variable frequency pumps. I think that'll be really good going forward.
Yeah, and we'll be looking to include that upgrade with future pump projects coming up.
And just as a reminder for the board that the district was able to get just over $400,000 in rebates from the help me, Liz, the
Energy Trust of Oregon.
Thank you. Energy Trust of Oregon, right. So we'll be, once the project is finished, that's when we'll have an opportunity to submit the right paperwork and get that money.
It's awesome.
Good work. Liz, is this your first project?
At MCDD?
Yeah. Awesome work. Cool pick.
Thank you. It was a big one to jump into, but I'm having a lot of fun.
That's great. We'll have to get you on the Dredge Oregon when we are able to host. These pipes look a lot like what they do at the Dredge. It's pretty fascinating to watch. So
yeah, I'd be really interested.
Glad to get you out there.
Yeah, I wanted to add, and I'm glad you asked, Ken. You know, Liz has just recently joined MCDD and took on two of our biggest projects, construction project, the trash rake and the pump station, and deserves a lot of kudos during trying to do this during COVID and being on site during all of this. I have a lot of kudos for her and the rest of the engineering team, but she's led that process.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. Next item is new district update from Peggotty.
Oh, that's me. Okay. First of all, I just want to give you an overall quick update on, as you know, fall blew in last weekend. It looks pretty nice today, but I anticipate we're going to get some more rain in the near future. And I just want to let you know, it gave us a chance to get the system, see how the system's operating after the summer, and little to few glitches. So it's a good thing. And operations staff is managing it beautifully. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. We are in the process of hiring a half-time FTE for the finance specialist position, which is going to be half the urban flood district, and half of it's paid out of your budget. It was approved in the budget for this year. So we are in the process of kind of on the final stages of hiring that individual. So just wanted to give you an understanding of that, and also that we are this does not affect your budget, but just a general update that Emily is in the process of, on the final stages of hiring a board coordinator position for the new district paid with the grant. So there will be more individuals reporting to the organization. And the rest of this, I'm gonna kind of go through. This is a result of a request that came up in your strategic planning effort. And I'm gonna give you a general update. This one probably is gonna be a little longer than the others because I'm trying to make up a little bit for lost time. Let me know if you're getting the right amount of information, not enough, more, whatever. So I'm just gonna go forward with, as you know, this is setting up a whole new government structure in the state of Oregon, which is the first time since I think the 70s in Metro. So it's a heavy lift. We are kind of approaching this, staff is approaching this kind of a three-prong approach. We have administrative issues that need to get addressed to make sure that we can get the work done, get the work to just get things set up and make sure they have sufficient support. Two is addressing the legal structure that needs to be in place. And thirdly, working kind of on a strategic level of their goals, objectives, et cetera. So over the last few months, I'll hit the administration first. They have been slowly, Kelly has been providing that board with bylaws and pieces so that they can kind of adopt, discuss, make decisions, move on to the next. Those bylaws should be completed. Discussion should be completed next month, and they'll be adopting bylaws likely in December. We've been putting together our IGA service agreements with the JCA and the new district. We've been working on funding issues. One of the things that I want to make understood is we did get the $500,000 grant from Business Oregon, which we've already shared with you. They are in the process now of the LRC discussed and gave head nods to provide $123,000 from their funding to the new district. That will be voted on by LRC in November, which then brings a large chunk, $123,000 to that new district, which is added to the $40,000 that our existing boards already donated through a grant last year. So they have now increased their overall funding to $663,000, which puts them in a little better shape. Our strategy on them, on all of this, is wherever we can apply the grant, that's the money that's going to be used first to ensure that they can spend that before the end of June of 21. In addition, they will be having to go forward. We're going to make a proposal to them of whether doing a budget amendment or moving that $123,000 from the LRC into the JCA. Our recommendation is to do a formal budget amendment to their budget so that they have the flexibility that they need on how they want to spend that. In addition, as everyone knows, they fall off the cliff. There is no money after June 30th of 21. There may be a little carryover now, but they have no monies. That budget team they have a budget committee. That budget committee met this week and are discussing the very issues that both Ken and Mike raised many months back about either doing getting a loan or a line of credit to help carry them till the permanent district is set up and they have a revenue source to help pay that off. It's clear that based on some preliminary evaluations that line of credit is the best way to go about it, because if we have other funding, then we don't have to use the line of credit. But there will probably be a cost. So we are initiating discussions on that. I anticipate that in November, we will be doing a tour of potential guarantors of that loan, whether it's the city of Portland, Multnomah County, Metro. We will likely be looking and talking to the port as well. What may be an option is that there's not one guarantor, that maybe we can do it as more than one. So that's where we are on that. We have developed a preliminary work plan that outlines the efforts to get them up to speed and briefed on the work that we are doing, that kind of merges or integrates into their work. Those efforts are going forward with, I anticipate we'll be discussing DEI next month and some of our environmental work in December. But we've also to go through getting, just normal administrative work of getting we have to get a tax ID. We need to make sure they have insurance coverage, that they're signing anti-harassment and other appropriate policy in the process. Having a registered agent with the Secretary of State. And so there's a lot of those pieces that have to get done, which takes up time and effort, not only in the meetings, but by staff. As I said, we have done some briefings for them to give them groundwork. Colin and Bill did an excellent job 2 months ago to get them up to speed on kind of how the system works. Really broad, probably 50,000 foot level, but it does give them, they're starting to get more comfortable with the system in general. We have some of those people on the board like Corky who, knows this backwards and forwards, and we've got county commissioner that, this is all new to them. So we've got both ends of the spectrum. We're trying to get everybody on the same playing field. This month we are actually going through a process. Colin is taking them through the process of the rate development, that process that the LRC went through, to kind of that proof of concept that went down to the state of Oregon, that really was an impetus for the state taking this up and establishing a new district. On a strategic level, we are starting to help them we're going forward with them getting a mission, vision, values, which to me is critical process of them kind of establishing their vision on the road, especially on issues that are a little less defined, like promoting equity, like how they're going to do environmental, et cetera. And I think it's the mission, vision, values provides that mechanism to help them start to get focused on where those parameters will be. We are on our October meeting, just to give you an idea of what's up next. We're going to be continuing with the bylaws. As I said, Colin will be going over the model that was developed by LRC and going over what is applicable and what wasn't in that model that needs to be considered as they move forward. We're also seeking approval for getting ready on some of the contracts that need to happen to support their efforts and giving them their normal financial update on where we are on spend to date for this year. So, and we will be seeking participation for the asset and liability work groups. So, don't know if that's too much, not enough. Any questions?
It's a lot, but thanks for the background. I think, there's a lot of things going on, so it's really helpful to understand what's going on with the new board, the finances, and congrats on getting the 500K. I know that was a worry not to get it. So, and I do think the bridge loan idea somehow is probably the most viable path. How that gets done, I'm not certain, but it's great you're exploring it.
I think we are fortunate because Jonas at the city of Portland, who has kind of been Michael Jordan's financial guru there, has just gone into the private sector and is addressing public financing. So he and I are going to try and get a meeting next week to have some conversation as well. And I think one of the things that'll be helpful for us that on that effort is, I'm not sure we should have a formal business plan, but we need to have a plan on, the next 5 years on how that looks and where the funding will come from and how it's going to be spent, so that we can talk to potential partners in a meaningful way.
Peggy, on the core work, when does the first match for the capital have to be in place? Is that within that 5-year time frame as well?
For our concern right now is addressing, I think we'll be looking to the existing districts for the funding of the 25% match for the PED. But the construction, I really anticipate that's where the GEO bond is going to come in, and that's going to be in 2025. I do not see that happening any sooner.
No.
So do we have, so we're expecting to cover the PED with current districts?
That's what we're at now. Two things. That is the anticipation, because they're the current districts are local sponsors. So there is monies that we can pay over a 3-year period. And Sunny can talk to this maybe more specifically, but the second part of that is, remember, we can do, with a 25% match, we can do 20% of that of in-kind services. So activities that we're doing internally can be applied to that. That is our goal. We will have a better understanding as we get through this process.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're working pretty hard right now this fall to pin down all that information. And there's a lot of flexibility within the CORES program too, about how much we bite off at first to make sure we've got the funding available to do that for that match.
Thank you, Sunny.
The only other question I had is, you said you're going forward with establishing the mission, vision, values. Is that scheduled yet?
They are, no, we are getting approval for the scope of work on Monday with them. And then we will go out with an RFP.
And, I'll throw in here on that. That's an area we may want to keep an eye on. When we talk about mission, vision, values, that has a direct impact on the work product of the urban board. But the main work product of the urban board is the GEO bond. So, and it's really easy for me, and I assume others, to get confused about when they're doing mission, vision, values, is that about drainage district management? But the urban district doesn't manage the drainage district, and as I understand it, never will. So are they creating mission, vision, values that are incumbent upon the permanent board to assume, which the permanent board may say, hold on, it's, we're going to develop our own mission. It's really, really easy to get at cross purposes here. And so, we're just at the beginning of it, but already I'm seeing some assumptions that either are incorrect or I have a misunderstanding of.
Can you help, when you say are incorrect, can you help me with that?
Well, the assumption that we're creating mission, vision, values about how the drainage districts will be managed. The urban district doesn't manage drainage districts, so is it appropriate for them to create?
Indeed, by that, do you mean because this interim board has responsibility for interim, and then it's only after revenue sources in place and the existing districts are dissolved that in fact the new district has that responsibility?
And that will be the permanent district that has that responsibility, not the interim or urban district.
Well, is it two different districts, interim and permanent, or is it two different?
Well, it's two different boards. Two different boards.
There'll be two different boards. And I want to respond to that because my concern is this. They are not managing the districts. The permanent board will be taking those over and managing those districts. My concern is this. If they don't clearly have a mission, vision, values around developing that revenue structure, because that's really all their job is.
Right.
They're not even doing the GO bond. Their job, I don't anticipate. Their job is going to be to develop a revenue structure. And they better have a mission, vision, values to reflect the expanded requirements that they have to address in that revenue development structure. That's my concern. Will the new district, will the permanent district, the permanent district may take them all and throw them in the wind, or they may say, I like these. I like some of these from the existing districts. I like some of these from the initial district, because both of them can apply and do their own. Or they may just take them all and say, these are great, I'm not doing anything else. My big concern is if we don't put some parameters around those expanded responsibilities that they have in their revenue development, I'm very concerned those with a 17-member board, it will be like herding cats through the whole process of that revenue development. It provides a mechanism. To me, I don't look at mission, vision, values as, oh, these are nice and here, they're done, I'm putting them on the shelf. My use of mission, vision, values in my years of doing work was always, okay, Board of County Commissioners, private sector individuals, city of council. We are planning this work. This work that I am doing right now addresses these mission, vision, values and supports those. You get people to buy on quicker. It also, number one, it also keeps them focused on what they've decided their kind of strategic mission. And every time you're, as a staff member, you pick something up and you have to make a decision, you look at those mission, vision, values and say, these 5 things I'm looking at, 4 of them deal directly with our mission, vision, values. Number 5 actually contradicts that. Number 5 goes off, and you can take it to the board and say, these are the 5. We did these 4. Number 5 doesn't align with your mission, vision, values. Do you want to do it anyway? Or are we going to leave it off the plate?
So Peggy, is it then the vision, your vision is that this portion of the mission, vision, value work is geared towards the initial board, right, in terms of their statutory obligation to develop a revenue structure to assume the assets, operations, and liabilities of the drainage districts. And that once that's done, and once we have a revenue structure in place, a permanent board will take over. And by that virtue, Corky, they can call for the dissolution, and the drainage districts will be managed by them through just a merger. It's a merger and acquisition. Would there be a need to develop a different MVV for that board? Is that your vision, Peggy?
That's going to be up to that new permanent board.
Okay.
You know, that is going to be up to, they may absorb that, the current ones, or they may make another, they may go back and say, okay, we accomplished these things. We're going to take 5 of them from the current districts, some of their mission, vision, value, or their values. And we're taking some of these things that we also saw that the initial board addressed as it relates to the revenue structure and apply those. That's a decision that they have to make.
Yeah, so I think to appease some of the current initial board members' concern is to draw that distinction, or at least allow for that option, that they could either continue to keep the MVV, the initial set of MVVs, as they move into the permanent board, or they can just, the permanent board can adopt their own.
Yeah.
Right. And it's great to hear that. I think we're all pretty clear on that.
Right.
But it's not always clear to the new interim board members, understandably. I mean, this is fuzzy stuff, you know, fuzzy.
Oh, really? I thought it was a slam dunk. I'm sorry.
I wonder if part of it, in just talking about this, is that there is an interim board and a permanent board for one new district.
Yeah.
It's not two separate. And so is this mission, vision, values of the board members of the initial board, that group of, that body owns those mission, values, as opposed to them being attached to the entity. Maybe is a way to think about it, talk about it.
Yes, and as long as the interim board is clear on that, then I think you minimize possible problems.
Yeah.
You still end up with some potential problem. This is why I bring it up, just for you guys to be aware of, you know, just to you know, as we move toward a GO bond, what if some of those values are attached to that GO bond? Now, so that money now arrives for the permanent board, but along with it are certain obligations that the interim board attached to it, knowing that they didn't have any responsibility to fulfill those obligations in the long run. So we just have to kind of keep an eye on that, make sure we're all working responsibly on it. And I think it's a good board that will do that, as long as we don't forget, you know, what those roles and obligations are of each individual board.
I like that. Thank you.
Okay, and so now I'm confused, because I feel like maybe Corky and Peggy are saying two different things, because I thought with the mission, vision, values, we had the initial board has to get on board with what those are in terms of the expanded mission, so they can develop the rate structure. And what I heard from Corky is that, no, they only have to develop, you know, some money things, and they don't have to address the expanded mission. So which can clear that for me?
Their mission is to develop a new rate structure and new funding source.
Right, and how can you do that if you don't know what your expanded mission is?
They need to develop this mission, vision, values. Absolutely, but at the same time, they have no responsibility to manage the drainage district.
Well, right, but they're setting it up for the new district, so they're not. I would.
The new district doesn't have to
completely different.
Yeah, so.
I think they just have to take into account that they're going to be managing these new districts, and it may be managed in a different way, where there's additional costs and requirements. And so in order to set up a rate structure, you have to incorporate those to make that mission, right?
Right.
So it's a matter of semantics of how you're describing it.
Yeah, both boards, interim and permanent, are bound by the statutory goals and purposes of the district, which is flood control, environmental, that laundry list. And how those are played out in the values or vision will be driven by the purpose of the board. So the interim boards will look at those missions for purposes of funding, developing a revenue structure. And I envision the permanent board will be looking at those missions for purposes of the eventual merging and acquisition of the drainage district's operations and maintenance. And surely there will be some overlap with respect to what those values are and what those visions are. But the missions, in my opinion, are the statutory missions.
And if we do it well, there'll be a large amount of overlap,
Correct.
and it'll blend into this new one if we do it well. And that's why I bring this up, is just to be aware, this is not all clear to everybody. And so that's part of what we're doing, is trying to make it clear to them. And so if you guys see confusion, if you see the interim board kind of getting up over their skis, let me know, let Peggy know, let's make sure we resolve any potential conflicts.
Yeah. Well, Peggy, I think that's a really good report, and in my mind, balanced between detail and summary. Corky, thanks for your perspective. We're running up against our 11:30 meeting end, so we only have 1 minute left for new business. Is there anything that we need to blurt out?
No, I just want to thank you for that conversation on the mission, vision, values. It's clear in my head, but it's helping to clarify it to an audience is helpful for me.
Yeah. Hone how you explain it. Yeah. Okay. Well, good meeting, everyone. We stand adjourned. And Emily, as always, appreciate your supervision and organizing of this. And with that,
supervision's a good one.
thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.